Welcome to the Spotlight segment. This is a segment dedicated to interviews with developers or interesting happenings in the world of Android. And now for this week's episode, here's your Spotlight.
Well, now we move on to our Spotlight section. You've heard from him already, but we're joined by Aaron Hewitt, the developer of the TapType keyboard. Welcome again, Aaron. Perhaps you could tell us first, a two-part really. Tell us a bit about yourself and how you got into development and what specifically led you to develop the TapType keyboard.
All right. So let me start with the first bit because let me start with a little bit of history about not just how I got into development, but how I got into computing in general. Mobile computing more specifically. I started with an iPhone, as I think a lot of blind users in the early 2000s and the early 2010s probably did. It was an iPhone 3GS at the time, and if you remember that thing, it was quite the phone for the time. And one of the things that I always found really annoying about the entire experience was typing. And so then I tried Android with what was it now? A Galaxy S3, I believe it was, probably. It was of that era. It was Android 4.1, I think. It was one of those where where you talk back was very, very glitchy and Explore by Touch was very hit and miss. If you remember,
I remember
that
was my phone. I remember it.
Yeah, I don't know if any of you remember, but you would hold the finger on the screen and it would make a bleep noise, and then you could drag your finger, and then you'd have to lift, and you have to wait for the bleep again, and then you could tap, and then when you would tap, you would sometimes miss because it didn't actually have a double tap, and it would actually rely on you to tap where your finger actually was, and the only way Explore by Touch worked was to. Oh, it was not a good experience at all. Because I wouldn't pay for mobile accessibility. I was not paying for it. Absolutely not. Like, no way. No way was I buying that. That was expensive here. I think it was like £160 or something. But yeah, so I found typing frustrating on both platforms. But the one thing that iOS had going for it was the fact that it had physical keyboard support, and it wasn't awful. Unlike TalkBack's implementation at the time, which didn't exist. So then an app came out on the iOS App Store called Flexi, and it was a really cool little idea. And the way it worked was you turn VoiceOver off, and the keyboard would take up the full screen, and you tap where the letters would supposed to be if the keyboard was full screen, right? So QWER, whatever, was right at the top where your status bar might be, and then the other letters were below it. So you can imagine that it wasn't exactly ideal because that's an entire screen. So your muscle memory is off, and you don't have access to any of the other app thing. And the way it would work is you would type into that, you would copy the text out of the text field, and then you would go paste it wherever you wanted it. And it was pretty good for the time. It was acceptable, right? Let's call it that. So then that app eventually got abandoned. Essentially what happened was the development team capitalized on blind people using it as a reason to open up Apple's third-party keyboard API. They got the third-party keyboard API access, and then they decided, these blind people aren't making us enough money. Let's go pivot our product to sighted users instead. And those blind people, well, they can just hang out to dry. I almost said something else there. So then TapType came along, which was a very similar concept, apart from it did use the iOS keyboard API. And then Apple decided on one sunny day in June that, you know what? No, this app now somehow violates one of our magic guidelines that absolutely nobody knew about because it's one of the ones that isn't written down somewhere. What it turns out is that Apple were developing a keyboard for the Apple Watch, and TapType was also a keyboard on the Apple Watch, and Apple were making their own, and so they suddenly decided that TapType couldn't exist because it would compete with their own first-party offering, because that's what Apple do. So anyway, I used both of those and I liked them very much. And then I basically transitioned to Android full time because I got tired of my pocket computer not doing what I wanted it to do. I have a lot of rants about iPhones and how restricted they are and everything else. But the problem with Android has always been typing, and I think everyone can agree that typing is an experience. And I use experience in the way that I might use an experience if you, for example, fell out of a window. That's bad of an experience. It's particularly rough. I think everyone can agree on that, right?
Yeah, not like falling out of Windows, they say into Mac, falling out of a glass type window.
Yes, yeah. I mean, you're on a second-story building and you're leaning out to look at the view, and somebody just comes up behind you and knocks into you, and off you go. I think it's that bad of an experience, It's particularly bad anyway. So, having seen FlickType, having seen Flexi do what it did, I thought, why can't we have that on Android? And there's many reasons why not, actually. Far too many. One of which is Google's Accessibility Service API, which is its own separate thing that I'm sure you might get to here in a minute. But there are many reasons it shouldn't work, and it does anyway, because I poured months of work into it. So how I got started in development. I'm one of those people who, if somebody tells me that a thing cannot be done, I like to take that no and turn it into a yes. And so I got told very early on that like certain things were not accessible to me. I think it was PDFs was one of the first things. I couldn't read PDFs. And I asked if I could, if it was possible for it to be accessible and whatever, and they said no, it wasn't. And this was on Linux at the time, because that's what I started with for a desktop operating system. I didn't start with Windows on Mac. I started with Linux. And I was told it wasn't possible for it to be accessible. And so I decided that in my infinite wisdom, I was going to go and learn C. And in learning C, I then decided to make my own PDF viewer, which then made it so I could read PDFs on Linux. And it was a particularly bad experience. The only way to get the PDF into the PDF viewer was to type it in through a command line, and then it would output a text file, and that text file had the contents of the PDF. And it was right to left, up, down formatted. So it had, if the PDF contents was actually tagged differently, then it wouldn't read properly, and there was no way to muck it up or anything. But it worked, right? And so that's how I got into development. I liked taking problems that people had, and I liked making the I can't solve this problem into a this problem is solved. I hope that answers all your questions.
Nice. It
Oh,
does.
at least
Yeah,
those two
no,
questions.
It does. It definitely does. So yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with your typing things. I mean, my way of using, say, a Gboard in anyways, I tend to navigate through the air, not on the screen. So I'll lift my hand off where I think the letter is, drop it, and I suppose I'm probably 80% accurate, which obviously sounds better than it is, because you're still getting 1 out of 5 letters wrong. So
let's take the 80% and call it what it actually is, which is a fifth of it, which is like a fifth of the time you're going to be wrong. Exactly. And sometimes and if you're typing a word with 5 letters, sometimes 5 out of those 5 are going to be wrong.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's a bit like OCR, isn't it? With its initial inaccuracies, that's a lot of letters wrong. So on TapType specifically, then, and you talked a bit about the Flexi and the other iPhone one. So how does using TapType differ, say, to a traditional Gboard or SwiftKey or whatever someone else might be used to on Android?
So the way TapType works is pretty unique, actually. The way it works is you tap where you think the letters are, and there is a prediction algorithm that I have specifically made and I poured over for quite some time, which takes a word list in English of 80,000 and in other languages 50,000, because I don't know other languages well enough to really, really dive into it to too much depth. But it takes this word dictionary and it looks at where the positions of the letters of those words are and how long the word is. And in some cases, for some specific devices, and this is a future look at something that hasn't been released yet, so I'm going to spoil the feature here. It can, if you enable it, look at what you have currently typed to figure out what you might actually be wanting to say next. in that specific text field. It doesn't look at like your chat or anything. It looks at the text box and the text that's currently typed and can figure out what word you might want next. And so using all of those different methods as you tap keys or as you tap positions. I'm not going to call them keys because there is actually no keys on the keyboard. As you tap positions on screen, it will suggest a list of words, and you can swipe up and down through the suggestions, and you swipe right to confirm the suggestion. And that then inserts that word into the text field. Now, this is particularly good for people who, for example, want to be able to type as fast as a sighted user, for example. If you have pretty good muscle memory of the keyboard, you can get particularly fast with this. I think I type at something around between 80 to 120 words a minute with TapType. And one of the other unique things that it does, and this is something that people have been quite vocal about in both supporting it and disliking it, is the fact that every single character has a unique sound. And so if you can learn these sounds, if you've hit the right letter before you even commit the word. So if you need to go back and change it. What this does is it enables you to type really quickly, and you can even configure the keyboard height so that the keyboard is exactly as high as you want it to be. You can either have it at the first third of the screen, you can have it at 2/3 of the screen, you can have it take up 90% of the screen, or you can have it take up the entire screen if you want it to be that way. And I think it's pretty clever in the fact that it doesn't require you to change anything. You don't need to turn talkback off to make TapType work. It does just do exactly what it says it does and lets you type faster.
Now, Aaron, looking back a little bit, I'm always the historian, and I know that we've had this typing on the phone for the longest time. I mean, we could go back to the first dial tone phone, push button thing back maybe in 1963 here in the States when it first got introduced. And then it didn't get adoption till maybe in the 80s and all of that. And so, we've always had this problem or, typing on the phone. And especially as you indicated, for those of us who are blind, as you went through the history when you got started and you went through the Fruitvale iPhone, aka that is, and then of course you also talked about how it was on Android, struggling with some of those things. So we've always had that. And then for those of us who are blind, then it kind of complicates the matter some, Aaron, because if it's easier for those that are sighted or whatever, because they're looking at it. And then, for us, though, we're trying to kind of do it from memory based on what we know on a regular full keyboard size keyboard. And for me, I'd always said, what, we've kind of got all these technologies and these advancements. Why can't we advance to where we can put all those fingers as though I'm putting my fingers on the home row and then be able to type, the phone would just know that I'm going to be typing, and all those 4 fingers or whatever, 8 fingers, I should say, ASDF, semicolon, LKJ, whatever. Why can't we get to that point where we can put all those fingers down? But as you indicated, it's been a problem. And so to see you trying to come up with something different that would kind of help mitigate that problem, I think it's a good thing. And it takes a lot of thinking, in my never to be humble opinion, to come up with that method to give us another way of typing. I've been practicing with it. I'm not very good at doing it, but I noticed that as I practice more and more, I keep getting better. So if anyone is kind of being hesitant about trying it, I think they should try it. And most especially, you got those gestures in there as well. If someone's kind of thinking, well, how do I go to, maybe the end, or, how do I clear something, things like that. You've got those gestures in there. You want to talk about some of those gestures, Aaron?
Yeah, sure. I wanted to make a very fully featured typing experience with TapType. because one of the things that really annoys me about Android is the fact that navigating text fields is really slow. Um, Talkback in text fields is just not a good experience, and it doesn't matter how much you try and dress it up, it's really bad. Swiping between characters, words, lines, sentences, all that stuff, it's really, really slow. And especially in apps written in Jetpack Compose, which is Google's new UI framework, it's really, really slow. And I don't think it's going to be fixed. And the reason I say I don't think it's going to be fixed is because I've been complaining about it for the past 3 years. And the only thing I've got from Google is exactly the same thing as if I would get as if I went into space and screamed it into the void, which is to say absolutely nothing. So it's really, really bad. And so I wanted to add a way, an action mode as it is, to let you select text, copy text, paste text, move around in your document, even use like a clipboard history, so you can copy something to your clipboard and then you can go to the clipboard mode in TapType by just tapping with 2 fingers and swiping to it, and it just work. One of the real important things for me with TapType was everything has to be simple. I don't want menus. I don't want you to have to interact with Talkback or another keyboard or another system in any way. Everything should be able to be handled by TapType and the gesture recognizer as far as editing, deleting, and manipulating text is concerned. At a very basic level, it has to be able to do everything, or it's not good enough to ship.
And do you have, for getting the most out of TapType, and some of this will be personal preference, but do you have a particular suggestion for how people should hold their phones and operate them? So, for instance, like sighted folks might hold it and like use 2 thumbs. I tend to hold my phone in one hand and use 1 finger on the other hand in portrait. Do you have a particular view on how to maximize the efficiency of TapType?
No, and that's the beauty of it. Is however you're more efficient on a touchscreen keyboard. However you're more efficient on a touchscreen keyboard anyway, TapType will just improve that for you. Now, the way I type most of the time is I hold my phone in one hand and I use my thumb. But I just use one thumb and I reach across the phone. But that changes when I unfold it. And one of the things that I want to very quickly call out is the fact that I have a foldable, right? And the reason that this is important is I was able to do some little bits of cleverness with TapType to allow it so that if you have a screen that's big enough, you can enable a split mode, which then makes 2-thumb typing incredibly possible. Now, the beauty of this split mode is that if you then, say, have your phone and you have it folded, split mode will be off. But if you have turned it on previously when you had it unfolded, it will be turned on when you unfold the phone. And it doesn't refresh the keyboard or anything. It just redraws it on the screen. And so you shouldn't, if the app developer has done this correctly, you should not be taken out of the text field that you were in originally. So TapType will just improve your efficiency on a keyboard, however you like to type. And some people have changed their typing due to using TapType and not having to use a second hand anymore. Especially those people that use split typing, where you drag your finger around and then tap with another finger. They have, I think, changed the ways that they type with TapType. I can't confirm that other than from what people have said, because I don't collect any data from TapType whatsoever. I'm going to make that very clear because I have a statement to make on this in a little while. I don't collect any data whatsoever from TapType, and so I have no idea what kind of touch inputs people are making with it and how many times they have to correct words, other than when they tell me, hey, this word doesn't show up as frequently as I think it should, and then I look at the dictionary and go, oh, that is actually really low down in the list and should be higher than it is. But no, I think that if you have a way of being efficient with a touchscreen keyboard already, then that will just make you more efficient. And if you don't have a way yet, then try all kinds of different things. Maybe try changing the height. For some people, the height is better if it's a taller keyboard, because that puts more space between the keys. And so then you can tap, you can tap with more accuracy and less worrying about if you're going to tap outside of the keyboard area. Some people like it to be really short, like I do, because I already know my way around a touchscreen keyboard, and so don't have a problem with tapping outside of the keyboard zone. Some people like it to take up the entire screen so that they They interact entirely with the screen rather than have to worry about, oh, did I accidentally hit send by accident when I didn't mean to, because
Yeah.
whatever reason it may be. Some people like it that way. I think whatever works for you, what I try to do with TapType is I try to make it work for as many people as I possibly can. And Warren, I want to go back to something you said before, if that's all right. When you said about why can't I put my fingers down like on the home row for ASDF, JKL, and the
Yeah.
semicolon. So I want to come back to that
Yeah.
because there's a couple of reasons why you can't at the moment. One is because portrait orientation. How would you do that in a portrait on a standard slab phone? I feel like that would be really, really awkward. You'd have to have baby hands to make that work.
No, it would be hard, but I mean, I could use it in the landscape
but
mode, right?
in landscape or on a
Yeah.
foldable, I am working to add exactly that. So the way it would work is you would hold all your fingers on the screen. It would calibrate. You would then lift your fingers like you were using Braille screen input, and you could tap
Sweet.
where you could tap at the positions of those letters on a normal keyboard to actually input those letters. That is something that is being worked on, not necessarily as we speak, because I'm not typing code right now, but it was a feature that I have been working on for the last couple of weeks.
That would be really nice, because my thinking is that this, like, nothing is impossible, if you know what I mean. Technologically, all the impossibilities that one used to think is impossible, like you said, you're a kind of guy that likes to think that everything is possible. Just work harder and work harder on it, and this, where there's a will, there's a way, so to speak. And so my thinking is that, we've come so far to where I believe we should be able to have that implementation, so that I could just hold my phone in the landscape mode, have all my fingers, 8 fingers down, and just type. It will be a whole lot faster.
You can't have them down because then it's going to register them all at once. But you have to. So
we can have them down, but like as Ed says, I have them up in the air, and
exactly. I don't see a reason that shouldn't be possible. I mean, we do it with Braille input methods already. You tap
Exactly.
.1 and I don't see a reason why we can't do that. And so that's what I'm aiming to do.
That would be
I'm aiming to make it very much QWERTY-like. So for example, if you want to type a capital A, you would hold the left shift key with your left pinky finger and then tap with your left index finger where the letter A would be, and it will insert the capital letter A. That's what the goal is right now. It's
great.
Very much in the early development, and it's not even to the point where I can use it yet. So I can't even demonstrate it.
That's fine.
It uses a whole different gesture recognizer under the hood than TapType at the moment does, because as soon as you start adding multiple fingers, TalkBack decides it's going to eat your gestures for breakfast. And it's really, really annoying. And so I'm having to re-engineer the entire gesture recognition system for this new idea. But it's something that has been worked on. So you're spoiling my product release.
I'm spoiling.
No, we're giving teasers though, and people will back to your GitHub. This is proper like trailing good stuff where people will know where it is.
Yeah.
We're possibly going down a bit of a rabbit hole, but if we think of a Braille screen input equivalent on either operating system, this is probably going to have to be a tabletop type system rather than the screen away type system, isn't it? Just because there are more keys. Or tell me if I got that wrong.
I think there's ways to do it. I mean, it's the same. It's very similar. You can do four. You could do 4 fingers. That's all you really. You could do 8 fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4. And just use your thumbs to balance the phone, which a lot of people do anyway, and they just have their little fingers pointing outwards like they're drinking tea. A lot of people hold the phones in screen away mode like that anyway. So I think it can be done. I'm not,
but is QWERTY going to work in screen away? Because your fingers are sort of, where are the other rows going to be? Do you see what I mean? Like tabletop.
I mean, I think you'd have it depth ways, right? So, like. I can see, tabletop is the easiest way. I haven't thought about screen away yet. I think it could work. I think it's possible to do it. Have I put too much thought into it yet? No, I haven't. It's mostly meant for what this QWERTY thing is going to be mostly meant for is tablets. quite frankly. I think that tablets are a very under-helped user base at the moment. So that's what the goal is with that, is tablets first. I want to get something that is good to use and comfortable to use on something bigger than like a 13-inch screen.
Sure. And I know people who feel that tablet use is underdeveloped. They find that a bitter pill to swallow, don't they, with tablets?
Yes, and so I want to fix that. And again, foldables, right? I know people don't like them and whatever, but they exist and people buy them. And I think for blind people, they're underutilized. And so I want to bring something that can be used on those classes of devices, tablets and foldables. And I think the QWERTY method will be well received on those devices. That's the goal first. Then I will look at, okay, how can I adapt this for other form factors?
Aaron,
Nice.
let's talk about availability. That's a big elephant in the house. So when I talk about availability, I'm talking about both. In other words, where do people get it? Is it on the Play Store? And also, what regions is this available at?
So it's not on the Play Store. It will likely never be on the Play Store. If you like, I can explain why it will never be on the Play Store, but
Yeah,
essentially
please
what it
do.
boils down.
Because knuckleheads like me always want to know why.
So what it boils down to is the way that TapType works. Have any of you ever used, I'm going to ask a question, have any of you ever used accessibility related keyboards on Android before? I'm thinking of
Yeah.
things like Swift Braille, and I'm thinking of things like, oh, what was the other one
Yeah.
that existed a
And
long time
the other
ago?
one, the Whisper
Soft Braille
Flow.
keyboard,
Whisper Flow is
Yeah.
another one that
Advanced Braille keyboards.
Advanced Braille keyboard. No, Whisper Flow is its own thing. I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole at the moment. That's a very different kettle of fish because that doesn't actually overlay your keyboard. That hijacks your input method service to add text. That's a very different approach that I'm not taking, and I don't particularly see TapType taking because it doesn't fit. Unfortunately, which I did try it. It doesn't fit. Doesn't fit the method. So. As you've probably all realized, when you're using any of these third-party keyboards, you have to disable TalkBack to actually use them, right? Like Soft Braille keyboard, Advanced Braille keyboard, that kind of thing. You have to disable TalkBack to use those keyboards in most cases. I know Advanced Braille keyboard has some funny workarounds with using Appear on top of other apps in an accessibility service, and TapType does a very similar thing. It uses an accessibility service to essentially black out part of the screen to TalkBack. It tells TalkBack that part of the screen does not exist. It intercepts all the touch events to that part of the screen where the keyboard would sit. And the reason that it won't be in the Play Store is because while Google allows you to do that for the entire screen with an accessibility service like Advanced Braille Keyboard does and Appear on top, it does not allow you to do it for part of the screen. Because what you then can do is you can send touch events to that part of the screen while another app is still actually the app in view. So for example, a permission dialog, for example, if you were so inclined, you could hijack that permission dialog and make it so that the user could not tap on do not allow, and so that wherever they tapped, they would tap allow, because that's what it allows you to do is intercept all the touch events and reroute them and do all kinds of things. And so Google do not want people doing that for partial areas of the screen. But I'm doing it anyway, because I think it's important to... I feel like when you tell a disabled user and a blind user, you need to turn your screen reader off to use our accessible piece of software, that's like telling a wheelchair user to stand up to use your entrance ramp. I feel like that's unacceptable. I don't consider that an acceptable solution. So TapType is not on the Play Store. It will likely never be on the Play Store unless Google lightens up on their guidelines. So you can obtain it from my GitHub, which I don't know if there can be a link to that in the description.
It's in the show notes already.
There we go. Perfect then.
The latest commit. So
yeah, perfect. So you can go ahead and download it from there, and it's currently available in English, German, Spanish, and French, and the entire app is localized. I paid a team of translators to do that. They're incredibly good people. I won't shout them out because I don't necessarily think they want to be. They're a group of university students. Fantastic work that they did on that. And I'm very grateful to them for it. But I'm working on more languages. Portuguese has been a very, very requested one. That's coming. Different layouts to allow people to enter diacritic characters easier. There is a multiple language mode coming, which means that you can actually merge the dictionaries of multiple languages together, so that if you type in multiple languages in the same, in the same sentence, for example, you can do that. That's coming very soon. And there's a whole bunch of things coming, but one of the most important things I think is the fact that it's not adding different languages to TapType is really hard. And I'm gonna elucidate as to why here in a second. So the reason it's so difficult is because a lot of languages have additional characters that I didn't factor in. I'm one person building a piece of software, and I didn't factor in characters like acutes or diacritics, or how they would fit onto the keyboard surface. They don't. So the way it works is it actually just suggests words that have those symbols in them when you tap over the equivalent of the QWERTY key or the AZERTY key or whatever it is, the layout that the language uses. So that makes adding additional languages really hard. I've had requests for Arabic and I don't see it happening. I'm sorry. I have to just say it right now. I don't see that coming anytime soon. It's a very different character set. It's right to left written. I don't see it happening. I can't dedicate enough hours to adding that kind of thing. Japanese is another one that I've had, and so is Chinese, and I just don't see it. Because, like I said, I'm one person building a piece of software, and it doesn't, it's not like I don't have a team behind me. I have whatever time I can spare out of my day job, to write this thing.
I have a question about the basic operation, or how does the keyboard work. So could you talk more about the basics of the keyword? I mean, okay, so I'm not sure if I'm understanding the keyword clearly. So do you have the keys, I mean the characters, and then the person types or puts the finger where they think that the character is, then it's inserted. And what about the prediction, or the word prediction? Is it something like, is it giving me suggestions only, or does it insert the prediction based on the word that I try to type? Can you please elaborate more about
So the way it works is when you tap the characters, you don't hold your finger or anything. You can, and you can type them that way. But TapType will never insert an actual character. It only inserts completed words, and that's the beauty of it. Is it can adapt the word length because it doesn't actually enter characters ever. And so if you type, for example, THEREE, it will still predict the word there because that's the closest word, and it doesn't matter how long that is necessarily. It's more based around proximity. So the way it works is you just tap where you think the characters are, and as it suggests words, you can swipe up and down through the suggestions. In the keyboard area, you swipe up and down, and it will cycle through the suggestions. And then you swipe right, which will add the word and then add a space. And if you swipe right again, you'll hit punctuation. You can cycle through the punctuation and the characters, and there's some heuristics there that decides whether the punctuation you've entered requires a space before it, after it, or whether it doesn't require a space at all. I did a lot of work on making sure that punctuation symbols were spaced correctly and all that stuff. There's also access to emoji through an emoji mode if you are one of those people who likes using emojis. I'm really not, but I had requests for it, and so it happened. And that's essentially how it works. You don't have any keys necessarily unless you hold your finger, and then you do. But that comes in after a delay because it is designed to be used purely through tapping, hence the name.
So should I swipe up every time to find the word that I want to type and then swipe
Nope.
right to insert it?
No, you type and it will read the words to you as you can. There's a setting. I forget the exact name of the setting. I'd have to go find it. But there's a setting that I have it turned off. But most people will have it turned on. And then what it does is it reads words to you as you type. It will read the top suggestion to you as you tap. So, for example, I type THE and it might suggest the word the, and then I type the letter S and it might suggest the word these, and it will read those suggestions out as I type. And so then you could swipe to the right to commit that word, or swipe down for the next one, or swipe up for the previous one if you're at the, if you're further down the list. The one of the things to note is the exact thing that you typed will always be at the bottom of your suggestion list. For if the keyboard, doesn't have a word and you've typed it correctly, but it doesn't have the word in the dictionary, you can swipe all the way down, and that word will be at the bottom. But you can also have this off, and so it will. When the way that it works when the setting is off is you just tap, and it won't give you any kind of feedback as to what the most predicted word is. You then swipe to the right, and it will tell you what it has inserted, and then you can swipe up or down to change that insertion.
So, am I understanding correctly? So, can I just, did you say that I can just turn off all of the predictions and just let it type what I inserted only? So, for example, if I tap the W key, it just types the letter W, and if I type E, for example, it types letter E without even trying to analyze or such. Is that possible?
It isn't. You can't turn the predictions off, but like I said, if you swipe down through all the suggestions, whatever you type will be always at the bottom of the list. Because there are cases where you need that. But the entire point of TapType is around predictions. The only way you can turn off predictions is if you use the drag mode, and you turn off. Did I release this version yet that has this feature? Yes, I did. I did. And so the way it works is you turn on the drag to explore mode, and then TapType works like any other keyboard does on Android. So you drag your finger around the screen and you lift your finger, and it will type what you have selected. But again, it only inserts completed words, and so you need to complete the word first. And it has a prediction bar at the top like any other keyboard does, and you drag your finger over it. And the reason for making that particular feature was not actually because TapType needed that. People requested it, and I inquired as to why they wanted it when the whole point was to predictively type. And the reason that they said they wanted it is because Gboard and other keyboards are really slow. 0.2 seconds typing delay is too slow for a lot of people. And so I have found a way by using gesture start and gesture end measurements based on display pixel counts and how many pixels have been counted and how many pixels you cross in your gesture, to actually be able to handle those gestures, or handle some of them at any rate, not all of them. And the reason that Gboard and stuff can't do this is because they use the Explore by Touch API, which I'm bypassing entirely, as I mentioned earlier. So what people actually wanted was just a way to type faster using the methods that they already know. And so that's why that method exists. And that method will show you your spacebar, your numbers keys, your enter key, and all that stuff. Without.
So when you enable the drag mode, can you still directly touch where the key is?
You can, yes. And it will just insert it, or it will insert it into the buffer. I should probably clarify. That's what it does. It inserts the keys into the buffer, and then it enters the completed word. And the reason for that is that TalkBack has a couple of issues, and GSure does as well, when it comes to actually inserting keys. When a character is inserted into a text field, depending on the UI framework that the app uses, the text field will actually recompose. And if the text field is particularly long, that can cause lag. And so I didn't see a need to have it insert every character as you type, when you could just insert it into a buffer and then insert the completed word.
Okay, so just to summarize what you have said, to make sure that I'm understanding and others also are understanding the whole point clearly. So this keyboard is basically, or it's based actually on the prediction, on the ability to complete words. So it's the
Yes.
main point of the keyword and the main idea. So I was just comparing it to typing while browse by touch is disabled, which is something we already do.
Yes, it's very much like
G
that.
Show.
You can absolutely do that
Yeah.
with it. It's very much like that. But the prediction algorithm is better than Gboard. I'm just going to come out and say it. It's significantly better than Gboard.
Yeah, actually, I haven't tried the keyboard just because my language is not supported. And you already said that it won't be supported in the foreseeable future. So actually, it was
just it's a difficult problem to solve. That's the only thing.
It is. It is. I agree. Actually, it is, and also there are additional characters that are sometimes important in typing. So you have to figure a way to insert them and such. Yes, it's a difficult one.
Yeah,
but,
one of the big limitations of TapType is the fact that we don't actually display keys in a way that would allow me to very easily add those characters. Again, it's something I'm working on. I haven't forgot about it. I have a lot of branches on my GitHub source repository, which I don't publish. And I don't publish the source code for a couple of reasons, and the big one is that I don't want other people. I'm just going to come out and say I don't want other people contributing code. I do this in my free time. I don't have time to sit and look at other people's contributions and decide whether they meet my standards or not.
I also get some questions. Since you said the app is not going to be on Play Store and it's using accessibility service, so especially some security-related apps like banking apps are not really well with those apps not on Play Store. And this is a keyboard which is pretty sensitive. What are you going to do about it?
What am I going to do about what exactly? About apps that detect the keyboard, or about
when the apps, like when those apps detect the keyboard as a threat and it's not on Play Store?
I'm going to do absolutely nothing about that. That's Google's problem. Google are a inherently hostile company. They have made these things available to developers, and these developers are going to use those APIs in the ways that they are going to use them. I would suggest you go and find a different app. I'm not going to change the way TapType works because Google want me to. It is not malware. There is no data that goes anywhere. I encourage anybody who thinks that
like
it is.
I know exactly about it, but just want to make sure how it's gonna go. It's because
there's nothing I can do. There's absolutely nothing I can do.
What about the sets of languages like pretty similar to Latin scripts like Turkish, Swedish, and Danish? They have only a couple of different letters with accents. So
it's possible they can come too. Latin scripts are very easy for me to do.
Yeah.
Okay, I say very easy. They're not very easy, but they are maybe a day or two of work. Other languages are significantly harder, and again, I have to wait on my translators, right? I can put all the work into getting a dictionary ready and getting a prediction algorithm for the language set up. But at the end of the day, you want the app to be localized, right?
Yeah.
And so, what it comes down to is I need to get with the translators. I then need to figure out a fee with them. And I want to talk about something here for a minute. I've put options in the app to like sponsor me and like help pay for this kind of thing. My click-through rate for this, and I'm not saying that people need to pay me or whatever, but I want to talk about this because I think it underlines a problem with the community in general. I've had my click-through for those buttons to actually like sponsor me and help me to afford to keep doing this has been 0. Absolutely nobody has clicked those buttons. Because I haven't received anything from it. And I am not saying that I need to. Absolutely not. I do this because I need it, and I do it because I want to make it. And I can stop at any time. But the problem that this is that people have all these requests for these languages and these features and these profiles and these everything else that's been requested. And my question to those people is, where do you think this time and money to make these things comes from? And I think this is, a lot of people are like, oh well, people shouldn't charge subscriptions, and people shouldn't charge for their apps because they're accessibility apps, and people shouldn't. I don't see why this person needs to make money off my app. We need to make money off our apps because this is what we do, and everyone has bills to pay and mouths to feed.
Yeah,
I
and
say
folks,
time is money. Time is money. Time is
Yeah,
money.
exactly.
And
Where do you
every
think this
time
time
you're putting
goes?
time in something, in making something, actually that's money, actual real money you're putting in there, because you could have been using that time to make moolah elsewhere.
Not even
But
just
here
that,
you are.
Warren, but like it's the people that I have to pay money to for various things. The translators, for example, they are translating an app into English. Obviously, English I can do myself. Spanish, German, and French. That is not, and there's over 170 strings, over 200 strings, and all the punctuation symbols and everything else that then get translated, and that's not a cheap undertaking. I will tell you right now, that is not a cheap undertaking to do.
The link to sponsor Aaron is in the show notes. I do sadly suspect that the click-through link to any link on show notes is probably even lower than 0 if that were possible. But please do either sponsor Aaron in the app or check out the show notes.
Yeah, and this is not me sitting here complaining and saying that give me your money, but I think one of the things that the community does, a lot is vilify people who try to make money off their apps, right? And I'm not gonna call out any particular names, but I see a lot of people in the blind Android users community that go, well, you shouldn't be charging for this because I don't think it's worth it. And it doesn't make sense to me. We all gotta pay the bills, right?
Yeah, well, the whole thing is that, like I said, everything that anyone does, involves a lot of time and thinking out of the box. Like you are explaining the process and all of that. I could have never thought of that. So it takes a lot of time to actually come up with those ideas to make things work that we thought they were impossible. So it's always nice to support those that are trying to make things easy for us. So it's all for our benefit when we support this type of developments and all of that. Now, talk about updatability, Aaron. So, for example, someone installs it and you have new update. How would it check for updates, or how does that happen? Do they need to re-download an updated APK?
They will need to re-download an updated APK, and there's a moral reason for that. I think keyboards are one of the most sensitive things on a platform, right? How many things do you type with a keyboard? You type your passwords, you type your credit card information, you type your address, you type your email, you type your social security number.
There. I
exactly.
love you and all that stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. You type everything into a keyboard. So a keyboard, a keyboard that connects to the internet at all to do anything is not something I'm interested in creating. I don't, the entire point is I want to respect your privacy as a user. And so the only way I can really do that, the only complete way I can do that is, yes, I can tell you, oh, it only connects to the internet for updates, and it only connects to the internet to do this, and it only... Where's your proof in that? Unless you sit there and diagnose everything and check the packets and check what I'm sending and what requests and where to... There's no way of proving that. So the way that I work around this is it just does not connect to the internet at all.
Because it is an offline keyboard, does that mean that you'd never need to issue an update for security reasons?
I mean, look, I'm not going to say never, because there are things that could happen if, for example, another accessibility service tries to hijack the touchscreen and read underneath TapType. It's possible to do various things, but those things are always going to be possible on Android. And one of the biggest strengths of Android really is the ability to sideload, but you can sideload anything you want. Now, will I ever have to issue an update for security? If a dependency of the keyboard is compromised in such a way that it would allow privilege escalation or something like that, then of course I've got to move away from that library, right? So I'm not going to say that there's never a reason that I would have to issue a security update, but because there's never any internet connection other than when you call the Google voice input method API, which, by the way, I don't control at all. So, like, if you have offline voice input, it will use offline voice input. But if you have Google voice typing set as your default, then it's going to call that. There's nothing in TapType that could be exploited necessarily.
The only reason I asked was because obviously that you might not know to check for an update if there was a security exploitation without that internet connection. So not connecting to the internet makes sense. I just wonder how you might communicate that to a user if actually you thought that was something you might need to do.
If that's something I need to do, then obviously I'll put out on my social pages, and obviously I will, put in the groups and on the mailing lists and everything that, like, hey, I really need you guys to do this update. But there is no way for me to deliver external content, which was a design decision. And the reason that was a design decision is to prevent exactly what you're talking about, which is the need for a security update.
Yeah, indeed. That makes sense.
None of the dependencies that TapType uses, I think, could be exploited. Obviously, I vet every dependency, but I don't develop them. So hence why they're called dependencies, because if I made them, then I might as well just do the whole thing myself. But nothing that I use is, suspect in any way. And it's all Google stuff. For the most part, it's all open source, third-party Android dependencies and all that kind of thing. So there's nothing that in here is bad. None of the dependencies is also connected to the internet, and so I don't have any real concern about that at the moment. Obviously, if something comes up, then something comes up, and I will never say never, because Murphy's Law, right?
Yeah, of course. And a couple of functionality questions. You say that what the user typed is always at the bottom of the word list. Does that list wrap? So can I just swipe up once? I don't have to go down all the list of possible words.
In the current public version, it doesn't. In the development version, it does.
Oh, good. That's a good thing. And when someone's installed it, because it's an accessibility, if you're running, I think it would be Android 13 and above, are you going to have to go and unrestrict it? So
unfortunately, yes, you are.
Yeah.
You can run it without the accessibility service enabled, but then you have to disable talkback to use it. You don't have to enable the accessibility service if you don't want to. It's not going to say, hey, you didn't give me permission, don't do. It's just the accessibility service is just a way of telling talkback, get out of my way, my screen.
Yeah. So worth folks knowing that. We've posted various things about how to do that. But I think it's Warren, or indeed Aaron, correct me if I'm wrong, but you sort of get yourself into app permissions and then it's more options and it's in there, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's app info, app info, more options.
More options and unrestricted.
But some weird idiosyncrasies exist. For example, on a Samsung phone, that won't show up until you try to enable the accessibility service for the first time. That's with any apps that does this.
Exactly.
It's really stupid.
Yeah, and I remember, reaching out to you because even after I enabled that, it didn't work. I had to go clear whatever again, like you suggested,
you have to clear
and
the
then
app
it worked.
cache. Yeah,
and that's Samsung's implementation that was kind of holding back something. Okay, you fixed it.
I fixed that. The reason for that was because it had initialized the keyboard, and you hadn't uninitialized the keyboard by exiting the field properly. What you'd done is you'd gone to your home screen after bringing up the field. You didn't close the field via IM close or IM send, and so it wasn't actually deinitializing the keyboard properly. And so I made it so that if the keyboard closes for any reason, it deinitializes correctly, and so that won't happen again.
Good. Well, Aaron, this has been awesome, and if you guys are hearing us, you haven't tried this TapType keyboard, you should try it and see what we're talking about. Like I said, anytime we have more tools in the shed, I think the better it is for all of us, because then something fails with another one, you can pull up another one. This is why I'm an app junkie. I like having, someone would say, why would you want to have so many keyboards? Yeah, because there are times that I want to get something done quicker than I normally would, and all of that. And so this is why we have this, and having more of this for me is actually a blessing rather than a curse, because I have that option, and Android is all about options and choice and customization. So I'm really loving it.
I just want to add one more thing, if that's all right, specifically around installing TapType. Google Play Protect. Play Protect might, I'm going to say will, but it has for me a couple of times, said that the app is unsafe. It is not. Okay? Google Play Protect is an absolutely useless piece of software that Google should remove immediately.
Absolutely right.
What Play Protect is actually flagging here is the fact that it uses the input method service. Now, I make another app for internal use, for my own use only, that I haven't distributed, and that can make arbitrary web requests and execute arbitrary code on my device with device admin privileges. Google thinks that's completely safe and does not have a problem with me doing that. But because I use the input service, Google flags it as unsafe. It is not unsafe. It is fine. It is Google being Google and trying to push you back towards their walled garden. Don't listen to them.
The other thing as well to say, Aaron, you wrote a blog, didn't you? I think you've probably covered most of it here, but as to what led you to develop TapType, that's also linked in the show notes. So if folks want to have a read about that, go check that out as well.
If you want to go back to the homepage of my blog as well, I write about everything from musicals that I attend to my journey with Linux and my opinions on the tech industry as somebody who worked in it for 5 years, 6 years. I write about a lot of things. I write phone reviews sometimes. I write about, like I say, the industry. I write about, I write about anything that comes to mind. So if you enjoy reading if you enjoyed this episode and the way that I talk about things, you might enjoy my writing.
Install TapType.
Absolutely.
Turn
Go do
off
it.
screen curtain. TapType
And
for
it is
certain.
hiding.
What
Don't
That's
touch
not
screen
correct.
curtain off.
to use?
It's
The
a beautiful
order
thing when
way.
when Ed and I try to
TapType.
harmonize.
On a Google Meet call of all things.
Yeah. Oh, brother.
Oh, you've ruined this episode now.
I know.
I ruin every episode.
But we do that all the
Just by
time.
turn-
Most
I ruin
especially with Ed.
Yeah, I ruin every
Why am I-
episode just by turning up.
Why am I here again? I don't know these people.
Oh, thank you so much, Aaron. It's actually been really fun having you on here to talk about this, because we've been wanting to do this. But of course, that damn train, excuse my Espanol.
That was so bad. I've never been left in a train station.
like
I've never
a
been left in a
week
train
ago.
station for so long before.
Annoying.
So thank you so much for coming on, and as we always say, and we mean it when we say it. Anytime you want to come on, please do. We have an open door policy here. Anyone you feel like coming in and talk with us, just be part of the podcast anytime, please do, because it's always fun when we have another different voice here. So anytime you want to come on and participate, just let us know.
When I release my next project, which is a screen reader, and is also coming along quite nicely, we can definitely talk about that as well.
Nice.
Oh, that sounds amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Again, I want to spoiler alert you. I understand because he raised musicals, right? I wouldn't have done it otherwise. But still,
Okay.
The screen reader. Is it a talkback fork or is it?
It is not.
Amazing. That's what I wanted.
It
you
is
to
not
say.
a talkback fork.
Yeah, this is what we want to hear.
I wanted
Yeah.
you to say.
Something
It
from
has
scratch
Hey,
is
no
what we
Google
need.
code.
We're all in. We're all
Yeah,
in. And so, of
yeah.
course, you'll be back here talking about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
It has no Google code whatsoever.
Wow, that's what I like.
Beautiful.
Amazing.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the
Actually-
answer. The right
Yeah.
answer.
Originally,
And you know what? I'm not a sideloader, but I will sideload this one.
Are
I'm
you
just
sure?
saying.
Are you sure? Are
Are
you
you
Yeah,
sure
sure?
you will?
yeah, I
Are you
will.
sure about that?
Are you sure?
Yeah, I will. Yeah.
Okay, guys,
You watch.
take this
You
as a
watch.
milestone. Take this as a
Yeah,
milestone.
Warren's gonna
He's gonna
sideload
sideload it.
something.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Because it's from Aaron. I'm gonna
Yeah.
sideload this.
It's a milestone.
Wait,
on
so
this
I can get
Yes,
podcast.
Warren to
milestone.
sideload any app I create? Cool.
I'm
guys,
serious.
this is
So
a
I'm looking
milestone.
forward to it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
absolutely
no,
going to be beautiful.
it's coming. It's in the works. At the moment, there's about 20,000 lines of code written for it.
Oh my
and
gosh. I can't even
yes,
wrap my head around that.
and one of the coolest things I think about this screen reader is that I'm gonna spoil something else here. One of the coolest things I think about it is it has multiple modes of operation, and so you can do like your explore by touch that you currently do, or you can have a virtual D-pad on screen. So you tap the top to go to the up a level. You can tap to the right hand side of your screen to go to the right. You can tap so that it's easier for people who, for example, are used to those button style devices to get around.
Exactly. I love it. I love the sound of it, and
Nice.
most especially when we have different modes, one chooses the one that fits them best.
Exactly.
And
I
I'm
think
sure
that's a
Options
good
are
implementation.
I'm sure that Warren's gonna ask you when will we have on the Play Store.
That one's
Well,
a little bit more complicated because that one should be possible to put on the Play Store.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think he could put it
exactly.
on the Play Store, and
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
gonna put some fire underneath
Yeah.
Aaron to put it on the Play Store.
But it's
It's not
again,
Fire OS. No Fire.
no fire, please. One of the things I'll say something else too before I go. One of the original reasons that this screen reader was designed is it was actually designed for a custom Android accessibility framework that I was working on to include in custom ROMs.
Yeah.
But because I can't unlock my bootloader anymore, I had to change the development method. Because I was just going to write my own accessibility framework and rip Google out entirely because I don't like it.
And so, just for a point of reference, you say like 20,000 lines of code, which sounds like a lot of code, but at the same time,
It is.
I don't know how many lines of code a screen reader needs. Like,
I mean, it depends on the screen reader, right? I could get something to read the screen in very few lines of code.
Yeah, your one though, the one that you were doing. How many lines of code is that going to be?
Oh, I don't know. Probably somewhere in the 100,000, maybe more.
Okay, so a little ways to go yet, but
yeah,
we're not even. I was trying to get a frame of reference.
I haven't got web browsing down yet. One of the things that I find really bad about TalkBack is web browsing, and I don't want web browsing to suck. One of the things that I'm modeling it off is I'm modeling it off the way that we experience content with, for example, things like NVDA and JAWS, rather than things like VoiceOver, because I think that a different approach is needed at this point because our phones are our computers at this point, and I think a different approach is very much required to bring them forward.
Yeah, makes sense.
So what I'm thinking though, Aaron, if things go well as expected, we probably will be seeing this sometime a year from now, let's say in 2027 or somewhere in there, because it's going to take a lot of work and all of that. Like you've just explained, you at 20,000 lines of code, and you're estimating probably about 100,000. That's a lot of work, and it's not like this is all that you do. You do lots of other things, and so you're doing this.
Yeah, no, I have a job. I do
time, and so
contract work.
so
I
it kind
do
of
training.
And it'll take a while. Yeah,
it will take a while. I would honestly, I would say maybe even 2028.
Yeah, and that's fair. That's
Like,
fair enough. That's what I would,
because
estimate
Android
too.
is also evolving, right? And so
It
I
sure
can't
does.
just develop something once and then leave it. I gotta then Android 17 is coming along and they're changing some of the APIs. So some of the stuff I've already written, I'm gonna have to go back and change.
This is why you need a Pixel phone.
No, I don't. I thought about buying one just for testing, and then
Well, you should. You should.
But again, where is that money coming from? Where's that money coming from to buy this? Stuff that I can't.
That you don't
one of the
use,
problems. One of the problems with TapType is people come to me and they go, "Well, it doesn't work on my phone, or it doesn't." I'm like, I don't have your phone. I don't have your Android version. I can't help you. I'm sorry. I can guess. I can make an educated guess at what the problem is, and sometimes I'm right. Other times I'm not. But I can't use the emulators like some people can. Sighted people can use the Android emulators and everything else, and they can run different versions of Android on their phones and all this stuff. I can't do that. I need to go and buy hardware if I want to do that. And again, where does that come from? Where's the budget? There isn't a budget. I don't have a budget.
Exactly. Well, it has been
What I should
nice,
start doing is if people want specific versions supported, I should say, okay, pay me then. I'm joking.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, joking apart, it's just reality of life. But yeah, we're all excited. And like I said, at any time you want to come on and chat with us, be part of a conversation, just let us know. But thank you so
Absolutely.
much. It's just been beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so
Cheers,
much.
Aaron. Thanks very much.